Let me tell you something that'll stick with you. When you come home after 2 weeks busting your back for a paycheck, the last thing you expect is to find a couple of strangers in suits trying to sell your childhood right out from under you. No, really. Picture this. I'd barely turned my wheels onto the dirt road by Clearwater Lake, sun still high, birds chirping like nothing in the world was wrong. And there it was. Big white sign, all bold letters, for sale. Exclusive lakefront living. And standing next to it, 2 guys, pressed shirts, slick smiles, and a young couple nodding like they just won the lottery. Yeah, well, joke's on them, because that was my damn lake. If you've ever come home to find someone trying to sell your family's land, no warning, no call, not even a lousy post-it, drop me a comment and tell me where you're from. Because what happened next changed how I see trust, power, and whatever's left of justice in this world. I'm Roder Brown, and this is how I exposed a 15-year fraud. See, the drive from Raleigh to Pinewood Grove is a haul. 2 hours if you're lucky, and nobody's rear-ended a tractor on Route 70. I'd been gone for 2 weeks, bridge construction out east, just looking forward to a shower, a cold beer, and maybe catching the sunset from the dock my grandfather built with his own hands. That lake's been in my blood since 1962, when Colonel James Brown, yeah, real man, second tour in Vietnam, came home and bought 30 acres of peace. Just enough water to lose your troubles in, not enough to tempt the wrong people. He built a cabin, raised my dad there, and left it all to me 3 years back. Not 'cause I asked, just 'cause he trusted me to keep it safe. Everything looked the same when I pulled in, long shadows, pines leaning over the gravel, that kind of late afternoon that makes you think maybe, just maybe, everything's okay. But then I saw the sign, planted like it belonged, 50 feet from my dock. And those men, selling my lake. I sat in my truck for a second, trying to figure if I was dreaming or just overdue for a vacation. But no, these people were standing on my land. Not the HOAs. Not community property. Mine. I had the deed, locked in a metal cabinet inside the cabin. The same one my grandfather hid Bourbon, Indiana. I got out, walking slow even though my heart was knocking around in my chest. The taller agent saw me and threw on a salesman's grin. Good afternoon, sir. Interested in the property? We've got 3 lots, direct lake access, starting at $450,000. I stopped about 10 feet away, looked him dead in the eye. What are you doing here? Calm, but I could feel my blood rising. He hesitated, tried to keep it light. Sorry, do you live nearby? This is a private showing for Pinewood Grove residents. I pointed at the ground. This is my property. That lake's mine. So I'll ask one more time. Who said you could put up that sign? The young couple looked at each other, like maybe they'd wandered into the wrong open house. The second agent muttered into his phone, backing away. The first agent lifted his hands, real polite. Sir, I think there's some confusion. This lake is part of the Pinewood Grove community amenities. We have authorization from the HOA president. Perhaps you're thinking of another property? I almost laughed, but I wasn't in the mood. Before I could say a word, white SUV pulls up, all shiny and smug. Out steps a woman, late 50s, hair done up, red blazer more expensive than my truck. She walked toward us like she owned the sun. Mr. Brown, she says, hand out like we're old pals. I'm Sandra Thornton, president of the Pinewood Grove Homeowners Association. I understand there's been a small misunderstanding. I didn't shake her hand. No misunderstanding, Sandra. You've got people trespassing, selling lake access you don't own. Her smile stayed, but her eyes narrowed just enough to notice. Mr. Brown, I know you've been away. This lake has been part of our amenities since the neighborhood was built. Your grandfather agreed to that when the land was developed. She was so smooth, so confident, I almost doubted myself. Almost. My grandfather never sold the lake, I told her. He sold 80 acres in 2009. The lake and 30 acres around it were never part of that deal. I have the deed. I have the contract. Sandra tilted her head, like a teacher watching a kid fail a spelling bee. Deeds can be interpreted many ways, Mr. Brown. 15 years of continuous use establishes certain rights. I'd hate to see you waste money on lawyers only to discover the law doesn't support you. She waved at the agents, the couple. Why don't we continue this showing? Mr. Brown needs time to review his documents. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a mix-up. Sandra Thornton had been selling a lie for 15 years, promising lake access that was never hers to give. She figured I'd be too tired, too broke, or too scared to fight. So I walked to the sign, ripped it out of the dirt, carried it to her SUV, and propped it against her bumper. "This isn't HOA property. It was on my land. Take it with you." Sandra straightened her jacket, giving me this smirk. "You may have a piece of paper, Mr. Brown, but I have 200 families who believe this lake belongs to them. I have lawyers, board members, a community that trusts me. Who do you think is going to win?" She turned and left. Agents herded the couple back to their car. And just like that, they were gone. All that remained were tire tracks and the stench of entitlement. I stood by the lake, remembering my grandfather, how he'd sit out here every evening, saying this was the only place that ever brought him peace. And now someone was using it to scam strangers. I went inside, straight to the filing cabinet. The deed, 30 acres, Clearwater Lake, James Michael Brown, 1962. The 2009 sales contract, right there, underlined by Grandpa. The lake and 30 acres are excluded. And then I found something else, a letter, 2010, from my grandfather to Sandra. Clearwater Lake is not included in any agreement with the HOA. Any advertisement of lake access without my written consent constitutes fraud. Do not make me involve my lawyers. She had the letter. She'd known all along. 24 hours later, a cease and desist lands in my mailbox. 3 pages accusing me of harassment, interference, hostile environment, with a warning that further action would trigger immediate legal proceedings. I put it next to Grandpa's letter. One was a threat, the other, proof she'd been warned and chose to ignore it. But Sandra didn't stop there. She fired off an email to every homeowner in Pinewood Grove, subject, urgent community alert, claiming some individual was trying to seize their beloved lake. By evening, the neighborhood message board was a riot, suspicion, then accusation, then pure venom. People said I was exploiting my grandfather's memory for profit, that I had no right to live in the cabin at all. By nightfall, someone tossed a bag of garbage onto my driveway. From suspicion to outright hate, 12 hours. The board meeting came next, Sandra at the podium, attorney at her side, nearly 150 people packed in. I sat in the back, watching her spin her tale. The original owner, my grandfather, agreed to share the lake, ambiguity in the paperwork, but long community use established rights. Then she called up their lawyer, who rattled off North Carolina's adverse possession laws, acting like it was gospel. The audience, none the wiser, nodded along. When she called for a vote to sue me, not a single board member blinked. 7-0. The room applauded. Sandra caught my eye, gave me a little nod. This is what happens when you challenge me. I sat there, still as stone. Let them think I was beaten. Afterwards, I called Marcus, an old college buddy who does property law. Read him the deed, the exclusion, Grandpa's letter. He told me straight. The law's on your side, Roger. But the problem isn't the law, it's money. Sandra's betting you'll run out of resources before she does. Her weapon is exhaustion. And she played it hard. The hardware store in town wouldn't sell me anything. Sorry, Roger. I got too many customers in Pinewood Grove. Don't want any trouble. 2 women filmed me in the parking lot. My boss called me in. There's been a complaint, says you're acting erratic. I believe you, but watch your back. Amy, my girlfriend, works at the hospital. She gets an anonymous message calling me a thief. And when that doesn't work, Sandra blocks the road to my cabin with traffic cones and a handwritten sign, Private HOA Road. Residents only. I moved the cones, took photos, documented everything. Sandra kept coming. Another email from the HOA, another accusation. Someone spray-painted thief on my property sign. I cleaned it off, said nothing. Even when 2 teenagers were caught on camera, I let it slide. The quieter I got, the more careless they became. But I wasn't sitting idle. I hired Walter, a retired fraud investigator. Paid him $300 a day to find families who'd moved out of Pinewood Grove. After a week, he turned up the Callahans, a couple who'd paid extra for lake access in 2012, only to be told 6 months later that the policy had changed. They'd lost 30 grand selling their house. I showed them my proof. She knew, Robert said. She kept selling the lie anyway. Amy came home with a name, Martha Harris, who had an email from Sandra, promising lake access as part of home ownership. Walter found a board memo. Sandra had told her team to ignore my grandfather's letter, keep selling lake access, and not to discuss it with residents. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. Diane Reeves, a regional journalist, got wind of the story. Get me 5 families' documentation, and I'll go public, she said. We were almost there. Then Sandra hit back, hard. The HOA sent an email to all residents, naming me, calling me a con artist, accusing me of fraud. My employer put me on administrative leave. Amy faced an internal review at the hospital. The community posted a petition to protect Pinewood Grove from Roger Brown. More than 100 signatures overnight. But I kept going. Martha Harris gave me her email from Sandra. Evelyn Porter, a retired board member, gave me the memo, Sandra, in her own words, admitting Mr. Brown was elderly and unlikely to pursue legal action. Walter dug up more ex-residents. The evidence was a mountain. And just in time for the annual HOA meeting, Sandra slapped me with a $500,000 lawsuit, defamation, interference, emotional distress. Marcus told me, "It's a slap suit, she wants to drain you dry, not win." I nearly broke. Amy sat with me on the dock. "You're thinking about quitting," she said. I nodded. "She has money, lawyers." "What do I have?" Amy said, "Your grandfather never thought the lake was his to sell. He said it was for everyone who came after. Your job is to make sure the wrong people don't get it." That's what got me through. 6 days later, I walked into the HOA meeting. Place was packed, 180 residents, board at the front, Sandra glowing with fake confidence. She asked the board to approve a $500 special assessment for their legal defense. Then she gave me 5 minutes to speak. I walked up, plugged in a USB, and let the documents do the talking. Deed, contract, Grandpa's letter, Sandra's memo, Martha's email, 47 fraudulent real estate listings. The room went silent. When Sandra finally snapped, screaming that the lake belonged to them, Diane's camera was rolling. Robert Callahan called for a vote of no confidence. It passed, 156 to 24. Sandra tried to leave, but the residents stood in the aisles. Nobody would let her slip out unnoticed. Her reign ended not with a fight, but with people simply refusing to look away. The story broke next morning. The Real Estate Commission launched an investigation. 12 families sued. Sandra dropped her lawsuit, her attorney issuing some nonsense about cooperation. She lost her license, her company folded, she pled no contest to fraud. Restitution, probation, a quiet exit, no apologies, just silence. I could have locked the lake forever. But my grandfather always said, some things aren't about money. They're about what you protect and what you leave behind. I set up the Clearwater Lake Community Trust. Residents could use the lake under strict terms, with every cent going to conservation. The HOA would never control it again. Robert Callahan stood up and said, "You didn't owe us anything." And he was right. But I owed it to my grandfather not to let the wrong people win. 6 months later, the lake is alive with families, kids swimming, old folks fishing, couples laughing under the same sunset my grandfather watched. Sandra is gone. Consequences, not revenge. The lake remembers. Now I've got a question for you. When power twists the truth, where do you draw the line between justice and payback? What would you have done in my place, locked the gate or opened it? Drop your story below. Tell me where you stand on right, wrong, and what we owe the people who come after us.